Hey guys, and welcome to Gwent, the Witcher card game. My name is Jaggerus, and this weekend was the Team Leviathan Gaming Invitational, a massive Gwent esports tournament with a $1,000 prize pool. The tournament played across 2 days. We went from 80 odd participants down to 16 on day one using Swiss format. Then we had a double elimination bracket that took 16 hours to complete, ending in a grand final winner who took home $600. During the weekend, I was commentating with Spiro, who is another Gwent commentator, and I did record a bunch of our games. So over the next couple of days for you, I will have some commentary videos showcasing some of the highest level of Gwent gameplay and seeing what the current meta looks like in terms of the tournament scene. In terms of factions, you will notice that there's no Skellige. Why is there no Skellige? Because Skellige was universally banned. People kept banning Skellige because it is such a powerful list. But as a result of that, you should be able to see lots of spicy Northern Realms and Nilfgaard gameplay, along with some monsters and some Syndicate. So stay tuned and I'll get those games up and running. One thing just to be of note is that there was occasionally issues where Spiro would see what happened before I did, just because of how the spectator client works. So sometimes he does react to things right before they happen. Other than that, enjoy, and if you enjoy the videos, maybe leave a like.
So whoever wins this one will secure their spot in the grand final, and the loser will go on to the losers bracket final, where they will still have one more shot at trying to claim that first place. So let's see what happened here. First game, Northern Realms on Bushy's side. It is going to be Unforgiven on Red Coin with this double Masquerade Ball deck. Let's see how this matchup goes.
I managed to pass the skill check of clicking play as well, so not holding the matchup. In terms of the hand, Unforgiven does have his Masquerade Ball, but he also has double Magni Division, double Van Morla Helm Hunter. He has a lot of bronze in that card, and he's opted to actually mulligan the Masquerade Ball, I guess because he has a Neuromancy to find it.
That's actually a bit of a strange on mulligan. I mean, if you have to play a Neuromancer to tutor out the Masquerade Ball, it's kind of a waste of mulligan. I'm not sure if he's maybe planning on not playing the Masquerade Ball in round number one. It is interesting to note, though, these wide punish cards like Surrender and Lambert will find good value in this matchup. Lambert especially, with so many volunteers being spawned with these frigates. It means that Bushy can't just kind of overwhelm the board with frigates and get a billion volunteers on the board, because that would play so hard into a Lambert. At the same time, Surrender also will punish a lot of swarm tactics. So, you know, if Bushy goes tall, it's going to get punished. If Bushy goes wide, it's going to get punished. So it's interesting to see how Bushy plays around that.
Yeah, he's just starting with the frigate and I guess just testing the waters. I mean, you have to be... Yeah, you can't just not play the frigate as a strategy, right? But I think when you're running things like your amphibious assault, it's better to then go looking for drummers as opposed to boats, right? Because the drummers, you can kind of spread out their points by slotting units next to them, although then you start to go a bit wide, but you have, you know, options in the dispersal. A quick Van Moller Helm Hunter there being utilized by Unforgiven to lock up the Kirak frigate to the brig with you, and no more volunteers for us. No boat clicking.
The interesting thing about this matchup as well is the fact that obviously, Unforgiven is going to potentially utilize double Masquerade Ball. However, Bushy does play Heatwave, and Heatwave, of course, can banish a card, and it can also be an artifact. So Bushy could send that Masquerade Ball to the Nether Realms, and therefore deny that double ball from Unforgiven. However, in doing so, it means that Bushy would end up bricking his own Bomb Heaver in this matchup. But, you know, is it worth maybe using that, banishing that ball for the second time, potentially?
Well, at the moment, he doesn't really have options to do either, because he is, of course, lacking in a Neuromancy, Bomb Heaver, and Heatwave. So, you know, maybe Unforgiven, his plan was to mulligan the Masquerade Ball because he was worried about it getting countered, and thus he maybe doesn't intend to play it. But then, no, you have to play it at some point. Like, your whole deck revolves around that. So, the mulligan on the Masquerade Ball, a very interesting choice, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting as well, because of the fact that if Unforgiven had played that Masquerade Ball in round number one, then Bushy would have had a very difficult time keeping up with it, because he doesn't have Amphibious Assault. He doesn't have, sorry, Masquerade. He has Heatwave, nor is Neuromancy, nor any other cards. So he can't actually answer. No Heatwave, no Bomb Heaver, no Neuromancy, which means that if Masquerade Ball were played in round number one, Bushy would have been under some serious trouble. Now, Bushy does have a pass if he wants. The question is he willing to go into a long round against Surrender and Lambert? or how is exactly going to fight against his morale?
The thing is, dealing with this morale is not great, right? You can play the Curse Knight and transform it, but there's still the second poison on morale, plus probably one from hand. So you're kind of, cursed if you do play the Curse Knight. It's not exactly a great play. And I really like the pass. I think at this point, there's not really a whole lot he can do in this round with that threat. And with his engines just getting straight shut down like that, you're maybe better to take your chances in a longer round.
Yeah, I think this pass makes a lot of sense from Bushy. It's just too threatening to play into that morale. So long round, it might be. Of course, Bushy does have the bomb heaver, but if he goes into long round 3, Bushy is a little bit of an interesting situation. If he plays the bomb heaver onto the Masquerade Ball in round 3, Unforgiven can play a Seer and shuffle it back into the deck. So then you give your opponent basically a second Thirsty Dam kind of for free. So what exactly is Bushy going to do about that?
It depends on how he wants to utilize the heat wave, for example, and take advantage of that. Interesting there, Unforgiven obviously was ahead, but opting to play one more card.
Yeah, that's a bit of a strange one.
He's going to dry pass, right? You don't do that if you're intending to bleed, because it puts you in an awkward position. But, he's gone down to, 6 cards, so he can, play one card and then pass, and he'll be back up to 10. And it just shows that he doesn't really value the state of his hand. Like, his hand was incredibly bronze, so in that scenario, you're maybe better to spend.
I'm just not sure why you want to give your opponent the information that you want to pass there, because now obviously Bushy is well aware that Unforgiven has no intention of playing round 2, which means that Bushy is free to mulligan more the way he wants to. So that being said, I think that Unforgiven will play one more bronze just to get it out of his hand, because it's not just that, it's the fact that he thins his deck by doing so, which when you play a lead ability like Tactical Decision, you really want to thin your deck so that you actually have a more consistent leader pool later on.
I'm being a dumbass. I can't do basic math. That's what's currently going on. I mean, either way, he's in a situation here. Okay. Yeah, he's in a situation where he did have a lot of bronze in his hand, and like you say, playing bronze does mean that you can thin.
He plays the Asir now. What did he actually put back into his deck there? Oh, he put back the morale. Interesting enough, I guess Unforgiven is saying to himself that Bushy's always going to play Heatwave on the scenario, so I may as well get the morale back into the deck because of the fact that the morale is going to at least be valuable, whereas the bomb heaver, the heat wave always will exist for Bushy. However, Bushy has not found the Neuromancy yet, which means that still needs to find either heat wave or Neuromancy. There's the bomb heaver. Looks like that is the type of play from someone that does want to dry pass here, so I would expect Unforgiven will dry pass at any second now.
Yeah, the heat wave, not the heat wave, the bomb heaver, you don't need it, so you may as well just kind of throw it down. And this is nice, right? When you're in a situation like this where you can just kind of get rid of bad cards, you're quite happy. I like the Asir with the morale, and the reason I like it is, like you said, there are a lot of answers, but also morale is such a threatening card in this matchup because it allows you to do that kind of poison strategy and play around the Curse Knight, where we saw in round 1. We saw the Curse Knight just kind of being a little bit messed up by the poison from morale, and because Bushy has kind of limited answers in terms of what he wants to do with these sort of things, it makes life a bit more tricky. Unforgiven does have Tactical Decision, right? He has Roderick, he has a Neuromancy, so he has access to actually a lot of gold cards in his deck, so putting an extra good card, extra good as in additional good card, not extra good as in, morale, he's so good, into your deck is actually such a great play for round 2.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, this Bomb Heaver Heatwave threat in Bushy's deck means that Unforgiven not really going to double Masquerade Ball. However, Bushy still needs to find it now. Let's see what Bushy decides to do here as Unforgiven decides to do here. As Unforgiven did play the Bomb Heaver, I would expect if you're going to play a card like this, your intentions are just to pass.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how you feel. I think with the score 14-10, you'd have to make a kind of a big boy play, right? If you're gonna try and bleed here, you've got to kind of put some tempo on the board, especially with the state of things. You might, snap the Masquerade Ball just to see if they have the answer, but in doing that, you do risk losing card advantage, and as it is, Unforgiven just deciding to pass.
Yeah, obviously we can see both players' hand here. If Unforgiven had played Masquerade Ball in round 1 or round 2, it would have been very annoying for Bushy because he missed out on a Neuromancy, Bomb Heaver, and Heatwave. So he still needs to find these cards. I'm assuming he will find at least one of them. It'll be quite likely to not miss on all. He does find the Heatwave at least. Still looking for the Bomb Heaver, but Heatwave at least gets the job done regardless.
Meanwhile, Unforgiven getting the invocation, but other than that, just a couple bronze cards. There is a lot of gold still in that deck waiting to come out. You know, we have the morale that got put back in. There's still Vincent, there's still Brathens, and there's still Roderick to help you, you know, find even more of your gold cards. So I can't believe Unforgiven would be very happy with the draws in their current state. That's not better.
I mean, rod tosses will feed this Cursed Knight. Obviously, Cursed Knight being able to transform an allied unit into another Cursed Knight, which means that these rod tosses end up just basically being food fodder for that Cursed Knight. Although there are two of them in Unforgiven's hand, the first one you would expect Cursed Knight will be able to answer pretty easily.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate for Unforgiven that those draws ended up with the double rod toss. Especially, you know, you've played a CO, you've put an extra gold card into your deck, and you only found 1 out of the 5 cards available. With 10 cards left, that's got to sting a little bit. And Neuromancy is nice, you do have access to 1 more, but only 1, and that's where you have to decide what counts and what's important. And how you're going to utilize things like the Rot Tosser, the Fangs to their full effect, these poisons, because you have to kind of rely on them a bit more with a hand like this.
It is important to note that Unforgiven could do something quite cheeky with this hand. If Unforgiven were to play Masquerade Ball, he could play Leader ability, and if he finds Roderick on top, he could go Roderick into Vincent, which would fully proc the entire chapter in 1 turn and deny this Heatwave value to deny that Masquerade Ball, obviously. So that could be an interesting line of play that Unforgiven could take.
He's got to be a little bit lucky with that, right? If you're gonna try and take that risk, then you've got to have the right board state, because there's no use, you know, double procking the Masquerade Ball if you're gonna get garbage out of it. The other thing that he has an option to do is thin the deck a little bit with a Neuromancy, which would make Roderick more likely to be found in order to trigger the Masquerade Ball. So if he's going to go down that line, then it makes sense to utilize a Neuromancy beforehand in order to, you know, make the tactical decision, whether he makes it or not, more promising.
And now we do see Bushy will use that Amphibious Assault onto that drummer, keeping the boat alive, I guess you could say. And again, we spoke about this boat a bit earlier. Carrack Frigate will spawn a bunch of units on the board, and these tokens, however, do play very hard into the likes of Lambert and Surrender. However, it must be said, Lambert and Surrender kind of fighting for a little bit of value right now. And if you take that early Lambert onto these volunteers, you also take away value from your own Surrender and vice versa. So I mean, although there will be very valuable cards, 2 of them together, maybe not so much.
It is a little bit excessive in that regard. However, with the Cursed Knight, you do know that you know, if that gets played, there will be a couple targets for Lambert. So you could always use Lambert like that for 10 points of value, and then the Surrender on the back row. There is the Heatwave, and not the Heatwave, the... I'm sure we'll see the Heatwave in a second. Oh, actually, I was going to say there is the scenario, and whether he's opting to play the... Look at that top deck. Bloody hell. Yep. Tactical decisions.
The Roderick will he does not find the Vincent. However, Bushy does not have Bomb Heave in hand, which means he's really going to commit Heatwave though, just to deny 1 chapter of the Masquerade Ball.
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, how threatened are you?
2 chapters I could see it. 1 chapter, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, so the tactical decision, I think it worked out all right, right? You didn't get exactly the gold cards you were wanting. And you know Vincent is quite comfortably near the top of the deck, which is a little bit sad. But it depends how you feel about the state of the board. There's a poison available with Morale, so you know that he's got a poison to follow up the Aristocrat. But I think maybe at this point you just don't care. Yeah.
So it looks like he's going to take the Unsafe to duel that Morale. Just going to put an end to that. And now, looking at Bushy's final cards in hand, I'm wondering how much value Bushy is going to get on the Surrender.
I think the Surrender value is likely to be pretty decent, right? The thing is, with your Aristocrats, your last option is Van Morlehelm Hunter. But if you lock the Frigate, you're kind of countering your own cards, right? You're countering the Surrender and the Lambert by disabling the boat clicking. So is it better to use that for bleeding, or to save it for a bigger target before you start triggering this Masquerade Ball? Like, Unforgiven can kind of take his time a little bit here and decide what it is he wants to do before he starts triggering the scenario, because Bushy's already shown that he doesn't care about the scenario anymore.
A little bit of a strange positioning here from the Roderick. being put not next to the boat, because obviously if Roderick had been put next to the boat, it could block the Carrack frigate soldier pocket, but I guess the Rotos does the same job. However, Bushy does have that Cursed Knight in hand, which can, of course, transform the Rotosser into another Cursed Knight, so that Rotosser not looking too great.
Yeah, Cursed Knight's not soldiers either, though, right? So...
Yep.
The thing is, yeah, so if you transform it, you're blocking yourself. If you allow the poison to go off, you get the volunteer back. So you're no longer blocking yourself. It's a tricky one. I think, like, the frigate is kind of done at this point, regardless, because you would need to place soldiers either side of it to re-enable its boating abilities.
Yeah, at this point, I don't even know if Frigate's even that valuable for Bushy, as he does know that Unforgiven runs the Lambert and the Surrender, so these units that are getting spawned don't actually offer Bushy too much value. Now, we do see a second Rotosser coming down onto the main row. This time, however, Bushy does not have a clear-cut answer, so it looks like that Rotosser will, in fact, go through.
Do you surrender yourself? That's an answer. I don't know if it's a very good one. It depends on how you lose 4 points, but you disable 2 poisons.
I don't think that, I mean, that seems a little bit crazy. I would seriously doubt to see that play, but Bushy does have this Heatwave. The question is, what is Heatwave's best target? I guess the Thirsty Dame is probably going to end up, I mean, I guess the Thirsty Dame is also Bushy's best Bloody Baron target, so yeah, it could be a little bit weird there.
I mean, you could always Heatwave or surrender the Cow Carcass. You place units to block the poisons, right? That's your other option, is you place something next to it to absorb one of the poisons. You have to do the maths, though. You have to think, how many other poisons does my opponent have? How many things can they poison? Because if you feel like they can just poison whatever, then... Or they can't handle the blocking of it, then you block it. Otherwise, you just kind of take the hit.
Looks like Bushy rather going to just develop this Anna for now, and Unforgiven gonna have none of that, going to lock it away and develop another poison which will answer that Cursed Knight. Look at this Thirsty Dame, 13 points already. Obviously it will likely just get in the Heatwave or Bloody Baron, but still very impressive nonetheless. And what is Unforgiven's best invocation target in this matchup, as he does not have Joaquin, which means that he has to rely on the Neuromancy to maybe tutor out the card he steals from that.
I feel like Invocation on this isn't necessarily being played for a card to play in this situation, but just to deny value. Because with the Neuromancy, you still have Vincent, you still have Brathens. Both of those are fantastic picks. And you have access to whatever. So you want to just hold on to the Invocation until you find a target that, yes, you're happy kind of destroying.
That definitely could be the case. We do see the Schiller coming down here. Not sure exactly what Schiller's going to be able to do other than play for just some pure value. We now do see the surrender onto the range row. That will pretty much wipe out the back row and put a whole bunch of damage units on the range row as well, which means that Bushy's leader ability becomes a little bit more awkward, because he obviously wants to get boosted units for that Visigoth and that Scytheman off of the leader, which will be a lot harder for him to do at this point.
Yeah, I think the board state in general is just... It's pretty tough for Bushy in terms of how he plays this. The point difference as well, 16 to 39, is really, really big. And there's not a whole lot of powerful tools in Bushy's toolkit. Like, the Baron onto the Thirsty Dame is nice. The Heatwave onto the Thirsty Dame is it's the same target, right? So you don't really have great value in both of those. You only have one boosted unit at the moment, and it's currently poisoned. So, you know, how long is that going to last?
And there is the Bloody Baron out of Bush onto that Thirsty Dame, I would imagine. There it is. Reset will come down here. Unforgiven, what does he have left in deck again? He has got Brathens. It's a great target, as well as the Vincent, which obviously can get access to one of them with that Neuromancy. I'm not sure exactly what this Lambert is going to end up doing. No real multiple copies of any units on the board, so Lambert might end up only playing for 8 points here. A little bit of value taken away from the Lambert due to that surrender.
Yeah, I think the Lambert, you know, it's an 8, but at this point, I feel like it doesn't matter too much. You still have the Neuromancy, which I think is going to be utilized for the Brathens. The Vincent isn't amazing because in terms of statuses, you've only got a locked Anna, so the Brathens does feel like it does just a little bit more. The Invocation's available onto just a tall unit, and I would imagine that's something that we'll see, given the current state of the board, onto the Baron, right? Yep. But then when you look at Bushy's hand, the surrender's nice, don't get me wrong, but the Visigoth's a bit sad. Like, that's a pretty sad Visigoth. His poor Calamp.
Yeah. That Visigoth is only going to represent 3 pings of damage, so 8-point Visigoth right now. Definitely not the mightiest of Visigoths I've ever seen. Heatwave also not looking too great. Right now also only representing 7 points. So the final players from Bushy, besides this surrender, aren't looking too amazing. Whereas Unforgiven has a big point lead, 11 points, plus still a decent amount of points in his deck and hand.
You just see the Heatwave snap there. And Bushy's just... You know, he's down a card. He's down 4 points. He does have a couple points on Shayla. He's got a couple points on Bleeding, so it's about equal points, but down a card. And Brathan's is absolutely massive. The Yennefer we just saw on the Baron playing for 7. The Lambert playing for 8. And that's look at that. Look at that. That's a depressing Visigoth.
Yeah, Visigoth here only going to have 2 shots, so going to be a 7-point Visigoth. Not really amazing. Here comes the surrender next turn. It's going to play for, I believe it's going to be 10 points. Not amazing, but not terrible. 10 points for 8 provisions is definitely acceptable here, as Unforgiven has got that Neuromancer, which I would imagine will be for a Brayden's. Question is, what is he going to copy, or what's he going to use the Brayden's for?
I think the Braythens you can more or less use however you like, and I don't think it really matters. The state of the bronzes on the board is not that exciting, so the copying not great. The Mage Infiltrator, you know, there's a couple nice 3s just next to each other, so you could go with that. You could even go Emissary and boost for 6. I think at this point it barely matters. It doesn't even matter. Look at that. It's 20 to 21. He's got 4 points of pings.
Famous words went. In the end, it doesn't even matter. Looks like Unforgiven will get the early lead with this Nilfgaard deck. And that's interesting deck indeed. Playing double Masquerade Ball with the likes of Lambert and Surrender. Obviously, Lambert and Surrender being very good in this matchup, as this NR deck does tend to swarm quite a bit. So Unforgiven will have the early lead so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really surprised that it was a sad Visigoth when you consider what happened to Sintra when Nilfgaard was in town. And Nilfgaard has made very, very short work of Bushy's list. Nilfgaard, like I said, is just dominating in this tournament. And I think it's hard for anything to beat Nilfgaard other than Nilfgaard. Probably Skellige, which is banned. And yeah, opting for the Emissary onto the Thirsty Dame. It doesn't matter. Play what you like. Just click cards.
Yep, it definitely seems that is the case with Skellige getting a little bit of time to rest. Nilfgaard is definitely taking the spotlight so far in this tournament, and we will get to see game number 2 beginning very shortly. So waiting for the invite, and then we can start off game number 2.
So Bushy's gonna need to regroup after that performance, but I feel like in some ways with the tournament players are just going, right, I'll win with Nilfgaard, and then I'll think about the rest. And you know, we might see that happen here with Bushy, that he's like, right, I'm just going to win with Nilfgaard now that I've lost against Nilfgaard. And then we'll just do, you know, Northern Realms, Monsters, Syndicate shenanigans in almost a best of 3. Like, the first 2 games, sometimes it just doesn't feel like when Nilfgaard's in town that they matter all that much.
Yeah, I mean, the last deck is definitely one that players often struggle with. Things like Monsters and Syndicate are quite often the last deck that players need to get their win through with. And Bushy does have that Syndicate. I'm not sure what, I believe Monsters is Unforgiven's, I guess you could say, 4th deck. So Unforgiven also is a deck that could be a little bit dicey in certain situations, but now let's see what both these players do queue with. I believe Bushy, that first game was on blue coin, which means that Bushy will now get red coin, and Unforgiven will get blue coin.
Yeah, so just waiting to see what it is that the players opt to pick, making sure there's no issues going on. All things considered, though. Oh, there we go. We're getting into a game now. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bushy play Nilfgaard, especially going on red. But then, you know, maybe you want to bring something out. He went Nilfgaard. I was like, maybe he doesn't. No, he just went Nilfgaard. Hey, look, it's Nilfgaard versus Northern Realms.
Looks like a reverse of the previous game. Although this one is going to be a little bit different. Bushy is not going to be playing a very poison-heavy deck. Obviously, does still run the poison package with Morale, but it is going to be primarily a tactic deck with Hefty Hulger, as well as that Stefan Skellige to make use of this bribery again, or even roll the creep potentially.
And then Northern Realms list, quite different as well. This is the Draug boats list, not the mid-rangey engines list. You're a little bit more reliant on things like your frigates. I think you also tend to run the Caravan Vanguards, right? So you have a couple different options for your Draug, but a much more synergistic list, which means it has a little bit of a worse short round.
Yeah, this Draug deck relies quite heavily on that Draug, of course, and that can be a very threatening card. I mean, the nice thing for Bushy is Hefty Hulga is going to be quite hefty indeed, because there is no heat wave in Unforgiven's decklist. So he's got quite a difficult time getting through that Hulga, and there's no Philippa. There's just no real way for him to do it. I mean, I don't even think it's a visit unsafe rather. So I'm not sure how Unforgiven's planning on dealing with that Hulga.
Yeah, Helga, she is a chonk. She's hefty indeed. Now there's not really good options, so I guess you have to kind of sequence in such a way that you don't care about the Helga damage, and that's difficult for Northern Realms, right? Because the Helga damage just removes all of your boosts, and when you lose out on your boost, you lose out on a lot of value. If you're running Scytheman, you lose out on value from your Visigoth as well. There's a lot of things that want to be boosted, and if you can't shut down the Helga, you're going to have a really hard time. Like, Bushy doesn't even need to rely on the defender in that scenario.
Yep, that is definitely very true. I mean, that Helga posing an ever ominous threat for Unforgiven. However, I mean, Drag is also quite scary for Bush to go up against. If he's not able to successfully answer or deal with these humans, then, you know, Drag can do some pretty nasty things. Now, we do see a Dutch informant with this Braden that's been committed in round 1. Looks like Bushling is not going to let up round 1 very easily. He does put in the melee row. Unfortunately, Braden's is not a soldier, so Bushy going to have to find a soldier to play into the melee row to get this frigate going.
You don't need the soldier on the turn that it is played though. Also, I feel like Draug is scary to go up against regardless. Like, have you seen the? I was gonna say seen the man. I don't even know what a Draug is.
Yeah, you get big skeleton man, and then you get little skeleton
little
man.
Dead things. He's a big dead thing, right?
Big thing and little dead things. Yes.
It's a scientific classification. Right, Bushy, you're gonna have to pass the boat clicking test. Oh, both players have boats to click. It makes me happy. Right, come on, Bushy. Click. But then he has to be a bit careful, because, you know, he really doesn't want to play on the range row because of the Magni, so you got to be a little bit careful you don't click the boat too many times. Get a bit keen.
So it looks like both players now speeding up the pace of things, as now these boats are going to be playing for 2 points a turn on either side of the board. It looks like Bushy is down by 7 points. I would imagine he wants to win round 1 because he really wants round control with the Hefty Helga. If Unforgiven is given round control, he can potentially get that Draug on the board. And once that Draug does come down, suddenly Unforgiven has a way to answer the Hefty Helga potentially.
Yeah, this frigate Duchess is actually really nice for Bushy, because it kind of helps him to keep pace with Unforgiven going into the round. Because every boat you can click, I can click here. He's got himself his own boat, so that's not really the threat. The Voimir is annoying, but Voimir you really want to save for your Kudwenis because it gives them protection. So you're not really looking to necessarily spend Voimir here. But Unforgiven, he's got a lot of swarm, but he doesn't have a lot of things to do with the swarm in this round, and that's going to make this quite challenging for him.
Yep, for sure. That could be quite a nuisance indeed. Looking at the back row now for Unforgiven, like, he's starting to run out of space as well. That back row, I believe he's got like 7 units, so you've got 2 more spaces left. Now we do see Falibor coming down onto that frigate on the melee row, which means Bushy will no longer have his own boat, so half the clicking has been eliminated from this game, I guess you could say. And yeah, 14-point lead in favor of Unforgiven. Bushy's going to have to make something happen here if he wants to contest this round. 18 points, actually.
I mean, if he was really committed to boating, he could play the bribery and hope to find a frigate. But I don't know if the man is that committed to boating. This point gap is quite big, so I feel like Bushy needs to do some kind of tempo stuff here. And when you need to do tempo stuff, a lot of the time you play morale. He does also have the poison on the gin. He goes well with tonic. So he does have a couple options with poison. You know, you can play the morale, poison the gin for 10, and then you've got the backup poison plus the fangs on something like a Falibor for, you know, and a bunch more points, another 11, I think, which would quite comfortably close the gap.
Yep, that is something that Bushy might decide to do. I mean, poison in this matchup isn't that valuable. Drag obviously acting as also a form of mass purify. So I think Bushy not valuing this poison too much outside of round number 1 due to the threat of that Drag in later rounds. So Bushy, I would imagine, wants to just win round 1, get round control, and then push round 2 with a Hefty Helga. Although it looks like Unforgiven is not going to give up the round anytime soon. However, the back row is full, which means that frigate is kind of dead right now.
Yeah, there is no space at the inn. There was no room at the inn, so they go around back to the stables. This boosting choice, how do you feel about it? So he's opted to play the Temple Guard and boost the Duchess. Oh well, Bushy's done. But I was going to say, like, in terms of where you place your boosts, is there a reason to boost it like that?
I guess it doesn't really matter too much in the end, but I'm not sure exactly what he was playing on anything specific. But looks like Unforgiven will take round number 1. The question is, what is he going to be able to do with this round control? He needs to find that drug. If he finds a drug, and there it is. So look at his hand. He's got a Dahlia. He's got Void. Wow, that is a really good looking hand for Unforgiven. He's got the Dahlia Caravans. He's got the Void. He's got the Visigoth and the drug all ready to go. So I think that if Unforgiven wants to bleed, he's definitely got the hand for it.
Yeah, the hand is stacked. The question is, what are you trying to bleed out? You know, what is your goal for round 3, and what are you scared of? I guess you're probably trying to bleed out the Helga, because as we discussed, there is no response, there's no answer. But how far are you willing to go for that? You can do kind of a little bleed here with, you know, playing maybe the Caravans, playing the Adalia as well, to kind of just swarm the board, kind of swarm it lightly, and then see what happens, right? And yeah, that's what Unforgiven opts to do here, is just start to swarm the board and kind of wait and see how Bushy responds to this bleed.
So Bushy is going to have to respect this. The thing is, what is he going to do to answer? I think he's going to have to maybe commit an early hefty Helga. Although there's not that many tactics. I mean, I guess there's a fair amount of tactics, but they're very committal tactics at that. So let's see what Bushy's going to be able to do, because you would expect your opponent is starting to brew up a little bit of an army of little dead things soon.
Yeah, the little dead things are on the on the out, and that's where he can kill Helga, right? If he can set up enough little dead guys, it kind of gets to the point where Helga becomes really tricky to play because of all the pings. You can kind of utilize those as a way to remove it. Combining that with something like a Visigoth, for example, if you have the pings and you have the Visigoth, then Helga's quite sad. So playing Helga earlier, like Bushy has done here, I really like. And this is exactly what Unforgiven wants, though. He does want the Helga out of the way for maybe round 3.
Yeah, it looks like the Helga is going to come down now, with Unforgiven not having a way to deal with that. But he can, of course, if he wants to, take the pass, say, you know what, I traded Dahlia for Hefty Helga. It's not an amazing trade for me, but your Helga is way more valuable than my Dahlia. So I maybe don't mind taking a pass here. The question is, does Unforgiven take the pass, or is he going to try and push right past this?
I genuinely, I was gonna say I don't hate the pass. The thing with playing into this is that you're kind of allowing the Helga to start to see value. If your opponent has something like a Tourney Joust or whatever, plus the 2 Helga pings, you're suddenly down 2 more humans. And you need to just be a little bit cautious that you don't end up in a scenario where you're losing your card, or you're spending too many tools for your whole Draug strategy, right? If you commit too much now, then you can kind of end up with just a Draug but no body, literally, to kind of recruit to the Draug army. No volunteers. I guess if you have a frigate, you got some volunteers.
So let's see now what Bushy decides to do. He commits that Magnet Division. Not a whole lot of threats there, as Unforgiven has got a fully stacked back row, I guess you could say, for this Draug. That's a scary looking Draug. He's going to play the Voimir first, putting another body in the back row. And wow, this Visigoth now threatening to be able to kill this this Hefty Helga. So Bushy's going to have to respect that and maybe boost this Helga a little bit up to keep it out of Visigoth range.
Yeah, you have to kind of decide how you want to deal with these boosts. Because of the armor, it's quite annoying, right? You can ping a Hefty Helga ping to remove the boosts on the armored units, because it would bring them down to their kind of base value. But in doing that, you make life quite sad for yourself because you're wasting value. I like the Defender here. The Defender, you know, allows the Helga to survive a little bit longer if Visigoth comes down, because Visigoth can't easily get through that much value in order to start damaging the Helga. That does get through it, though.
And I like that Unforgiven. So usually when it comes to Draug, you don't want to overstack your back row. The reason being is because you row stack, you row cap yourself very soon when you get those death blows with the Revenants. However, when you're up against Hefty Helga, you do expect your opponent to kill some of your units. So row stacking your back row ends up being quite nice. Make sure that you get at least some Revenants to stick, as Bushy now does have 2 pings on that Hefty Helga, which can do 4 damage and potentially start getting some value through. Looking at the rest of Bushy's hand, however, he doesn't have that Stefan in hand, but he can Royal Decree it out. But then again, Unforgiven, with so many boosts on the board, this Visigoth, especially when combined lead ability, can offer so much removal reach for Unforgiven.
Is Unforgiven going for a 2-0 here? I feel like with the way that he's committing into this round, You know, you're running out of options. Like, you want to play Visigood here because you have so many boosted units. You've got that much value on your Visigood right now. So you kind of want to utilize that now. And then with the Draug, you've got a whole row full of humans, which is, you know, set up just perfectly for the Draug. So you kind of want to do that as well. Whereas if you carry these cards through to the next round, you'd have to set up more boosted units and more humans to convert to the little dead thing army. So I kind of feel a little bit like Unforgiven might just kind of keep going here and, you know, kind of throw round 3 out the window.
Let's see what he's gonna do. I mean, this board, like, the thing is, he's already committed too much to this. That's the thing about Draug. It's not really a deck that you can really once you commit to it, you have to kind of go all in. And it looks like now Unforgiven is going to use a Visigoth, putting it into his hefty Helga, and that is going to shut down such a huge amount of Bushy's source of points. Of course, Bushy still has got that Stefan with bribery, but he's going to be at the mercy of some Bless RNGs soon, because this point gap is going to widen even further once that Draug comes down, which I very much expect to happen this turn.
Yeah, I feel like Unforgiven's kind of reached the point of no return with this round too, because he spent so many of his tools that synergize so much, you kind of have to go for it. And I wonder if Bushy, you know, with floating the charges there, is he kind of trying to tempt... Is he trying to tempt Unforgiven into playing the Visigood so that the Stefan makes it through?
Looks like Bushy is going to play this bribery into a Bloody Baron, which is not bad at all. However, the problem for this bribery is now if Bushy does want to Royal Decree out the Stefan, it is going to overwrite it's going to overwrite the bribery, which means that Stefan is locked into playing a Royal Decree. But what exactly is Royal Decree going to pull out with Stefan? Like, he's going to Royal Decree to Stefan, and then what? You can't Royal Decree Ramon. There's no Bronze Soldiers in hand.
You'd have to go, I guess, Menno into a Tony Joust, and that doesn't feel good. Right? Oh no. Oh no, the little dead army is here. The Baron onto the Scytheman is nice, but there's a follow-up Scytheman. You've also got your poison that you need to utilize, but you also don't want Morale to die. I mean, he has double last say, right? So that is a thing.
Yeah, that is gonna be a very big point. I mean, these Revenants are gonna do so much damage here, and there's still a Scytheman in Unforgiven's hand. I mean, obviously Bushy still has his own leader, but he still has morale, so maybe Bushy can make something happen. But there's a pretty big point gap. We've got to see how that works.
So you have 9 pings of damage on the board. So Bushy can protect whatever it is he opts to play here. Like, if he opts to use the morale, he can, play leader charges on it, 3 of them, to get it up to 11, for example. If he plays Stefan, he can get that up to 11 as well. He can protect its ability, assuming he doesn't expect any more damage from, say, a Ballista. A Ballista would only be 1, right? So yeah, if as long as he gets to 11, he should be fine. But you have to decide whether that's worth it in this situation or not.
Why morale melee roam?
Because you have to play it melee if you want the follow-up. But then he didn't boost it.
Right, never mind, it's road locked.
Yeah, we made this mistake earlier. Some of us learned from it. Some of us.
I'm so used to morale being free, but it is melee locked in the end. Although he does have the follow-up poison. There's no other purifier. Bushy does the follow-up poison anyway. Does he actually even care if it
if it dies? No, I don't think he does. I think he's trying to get out of this round, spending as little as possible, but there's a 40-point gap at the moment. There is a poison Draug. You've got your follow-up poison on your cupbearer, right? So you got your 5 and your 7. That's your 12 points. You got to work out the maths here. You got to work out what's the best way to use my cards, what's the best way to use my leader ability, how many charges do I need to use in order to win this. If you're going for Stefan, you're going both cards. The question is, how many leader charges do you need? And are the leader charges going to be enough?
Yeah, it's still a very big point gap to make up there. 32 points still in favor of Bushy. He's going to have to play Royal Decree onto Stefan, but again, there isn't really much to Royal Decree. You can Royal Decree out Mana for 6 points, or you can Royal Decree out Tortoise for 7 points. Not in... I think Tortoise is going to be the most points here, but it really isn't enough. Is it? I mean, with leader, maybe.
Yeah, you've got the leader, you've got the Afan, right? It's a big hill to climb. It is a big hill to climb.
It is enough, but barely, by 1 point. Bushy, just by the skin of his teeth, will make it to round 3, but what does he have? I guess he's got Ramon and Invocation, whereas Unforgiven will top deck into potentially Neuromancy and Amphibious Assault. Bloody Baron 2, this could be very close. It's going to go into top deck mode. Let's see who's going to be the luckier top decker.
Neither right now. We've got a lot of bronze coming up. There's an Neuromancy for Unforgiven, so that's a good top deck. The thing is, if Bushy could have done it using Menno and a tactic, I think that's what he would have gone for, right? Because it does mean you have more soldiers. If you do find Ramon, getting the tortoise, for example, is quite nice. So let's see how they mulligan.
Well, Bushy's still looking for that Ramon. Unforgiven, on the other hand, does find that bomb here. I think he's got one mulligan left. Will mulligan with the bomb here for now. He has got a Neuromancy. Not amazing top decks from Unforgiven either. So Bushy does miss out on the Ramon and Invocation Man. Both these players not drawing amazingly. I think Bushy drawing a little bit worse, however. But let's see what this game is going to look like as we see Mena coming down now for a proactive Tourney Joust. Just a 6-point Mena, not looking too good.
Yeah, it's a sad play. I mean, Tourney Joust is nice at least that you can play it proactively. You can boost the Menno here, so it's not the worst thing ever, but you're also then playing into the Baron in that regard, which is, you know, something that's accessible with the Neuromancy. Then you've got, what, Radovid's Rogard and Ballista don't do a whole lot, but then neither does Arbalist and Crossbowman. Like, yes, one of them's a soldier, so you get an extra point on the Crossbowman, but it's, what, 6 points and then 4? Actually, no, 3 if you play, depending on how you sequence it. You know, it's not very big.
Yep, definitely not amazing indeed. I mean, it's not looking good for Bushy. These last 2 cards, not great. Unforgiven still has a Neuromancer, which I think right now the best target is going to be Amphibious Assault. We will see a Radovid Royal Guard. For now, Bushy has to play this Deathwind Obelisk, but this Deathwind Obelisk will only be able to do 2 points of bleeding value, as round 3 is only two cards longer, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's just kind of, we're watching the slow and inevitable demise of Bushy in this situation, and you got to feel for him. I think the 2-0 play, or the attempt at the 2-0, the real kind of all-out play in round 2 by Unforgiven really did pay off. But I think part of the reason that ended up paying off was just that Bushy didn't draw Ramon, right? If you draw Ramon here, it's a completely different story.
Looks like Unforgiven going to ping off the shield on that Menno for now. And, I mean, this Obelisk is going to be a 4-point card. Really not what you want to be seeing, as Unforgiven has got that Neuromancy. So it looks like Unforgiven, I think, should be able to take this one, but very close, in fact. So that means that Unforgiven will take the series so far 2-0, which means that Bushy is going to have to reverse sweep Unforgiven's final deck, which is a monster deck.
This is what I get for bigging up Nilfgaard, you know? I feel like I played myself here. I'm sorry, Bushy, I cursed you. Or maybe it was the night that you were playing a new deck. One of the things. Someone is cursed for some reason here. Yeah, I think a little bit of a surprising outcome. I like the way that Unforgiven played it. The round 2, a very interesting strategy from a deck that really likes a long round and is so synergistic. But ultimately won him the game.
Yep, looks like game number 2 in favor of Unforgiven. So let's see what happens. It is 4 points, chat. The 1 point, I said that the Obelisk will play for 4 points. The Crossbowman plays for 1 point. So that's the Crossbowman's points, not the Obelisk's point.
It doesn't matter. It's like 1 or 2 points, right? Who cares? Chat probably cares.
Chat
that is the answer to that question. I gotta give a big shout out to Unforgiven though. I love a 2-0. If you know me, you will know I love a 2-0. I have a Twitch emote that is 2-0. That's how much I love 2-0. So anyone who ever goes for 2-0 gets like points in my book. Even if they're imaginary points that don't actually affect the outcome of the game.
All right, let's see now if Bush is going to be able to mount the comeback, as he is going to have to reverse sweep monster deck, which honestly, if there's any deck you can potentially reverse sweep, it's probably going to be monsters or syndicate, it seems. So let's see if Bush is going to do it. Bushy will have blue coins, so monsters can be kind of scary on blue coin, I must say. You know, it is a deck that when you are up against it, if they draw well and you have an awkward hand, they can put out a lot of points in a very short amount of time. So let's see what Bushy decides to queue in with against this monster deck on his blue coin game.
Yeah, this is kind of what it comes down to. Players, they get their win with Northern Realms, they get their win with Nilfgaard, and then they try and find a win with whatever the heck it is that they've got left. And this is kind of the story of the tournament to a certain extent. The monsters list, it is a swarmy list, so very different from some of the other monsters lists we've seen, and it does have a little bit more reactivity in terms of the deck compared to other monster lists, right? Which makes it a little bit better against things like engines and maybe things like Nilfgaard to an extent.
Yep, for sure. I mean, it is interesting to note that Bushy does have a small advantage. Now, obviously, you're probably wondering yourself, what kind of advantage could you possibly have being 2-0 down in a series? There is a small advantage you do get. It is the fact that Bushy now knows exactly what Unforgiven's last deck is going to be. So Unforgiven is going to be forced to queue with monsters every single time now, whereas Bushy can decide what deck he wants to queue in with what coin. So there's a little bit of advantage in that, but overall, obviously,
What a great advantage! I'm sure Bushy would love to be 2-0 down, but knowing that his opponent only has one deck left.
it's I guess you could say a silver lining to the situation, if you will. So let's see what Bushy's going to be queuing with his blue coin, as he is going to be queuing Northern Realms, it seems, against this Ruckus Swarm deck.
Yeah, against the Ruckus Swarm. So let's have a look at the hands and see what is going on. Unforgiven drawing into quite a lot of control there. He's got the Striga Adder, he's got Natural Selection, he's got Parasite, he's got the Wrath of Imlerith. I don't know why that needed a special voice, but it clearly did. So a lot of control options to try and counter some of Bushy's strategies, and Bushy's going to have to think quite carefully about where he wants his units to be in terms of their points, right? Because you can manipulate the strength of units in terms of using Amphibious Assault, in terms of utilizing Radovid's Royal Guard, and Leader Charges to try and play around some of this damage.
And that's the nice thing about Amphibious Assault, is it makes it so much more difficult for your opponent to actually end up killing your engines, because you can just take out an Amphibious Assault onto something like a Carrack Frigate, and suddenly you have a 7-point frigate on the board, which is much harder to remove. Or maybe you want to do it on a drummer. Looks like Bushy now going to play the Carrack Frigate, not going to use the tactical advantage, which means that this Parasite can very happily come down to answer it if he wants to.
Yep. I mean, Bushy knows that's the thing, right? You have to kind of decide where it is you want to use your TA and how it is you want to use your TA against the list, and what it is that you value protecting the most in this scenario. And I guess this just tells that he's not really valuing this frigate in particular.
Yeah, definitely seems like Bushy is going to play right into the Parasite. Of course, he still has access to another one. He has a Neuromancer, which can, of course, tutor out Amphibious Assault. So he will have access to the second one. But again, Unforgiven does have that Imlerith's Wrath in hand, so he could potentially maybe kill that one too. Let's see what Unforgiven decides about this frigate, though. Will he spend the Parasite now or not?
I mean, what's his alternative strategy? You can kind of start developing your own points, I suppose. Yeah, so with something like getting the Night Wraith on board, and then you've got the Aneromancy to find the Ethereal if you want to kind of create your own engines. And Ethereal, he kind of counteracts the engines of Bushy. So in that scenario, you maybe just want to start developing your own engines rather than wasting resources or spending resources trying to deal with Bushy's. With that said, Radovid Royal Guard is quite a delicious target for Natural Selection. I hear that Evolution does not smile upon the allies of Radovid.
Yeah, it seems like it looks like Unforgiven also runs a Lacerate, which means that this Carrack Frigate value isn't that threatening for Unforgiven, as he has got the Lacerate, which is going to be a Row Punish card. And we've seen this time and time again in Unforgiven's lineup. He has that Row Punish available once more. We saw it in the Nilfgaard deck with the Surrender and the Lambert. This time we have the Lacerate. So this Carrack Frigate, although it's getting 2 points a turn, those 2 points a turn are soon going to be nullified at some point, because obviously the Whisper's Tribute can grab that Lacerate at some point. Yeah,
so in terms of the positioning of this Striga, oh man, just everyone is dying today. It's Natural Selection there, Striga for another. The positioning of this Striga shows that Unforgiven doesn't intend to play Ethereal, right? Because if you intend to play Ethereal, you don't position it on the right-hand side of the rats. You just kind of leave it. The drone here on the Ranger of the Spawn here gives you a really nice Adrenaline Rush target. It means, though, that you can no longer use the Tribute for Adrenaline Rush. However, considering the row sacking, like you said, Lacerate probably going to be the target of that Tribute, so it's fine. But you do have to play the A-Rush first, which we see now. And the A-Rush countering itself, right? No more Adrenaline in the back row.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the necessarily such a bad thing, because I think that in the end, Unforgiven is probably going to play the Whisper trade for a Lacerate. Right now, Unforgiven is 6 points ahead, so Bushy needs to try figure out a way to get out of this round. Obviously, one very big lose condition in this matchup is losing on even. Obviously, Bushy would like to win round one, but he definitely needs to be careful, at least not to lose on even. That would be disastrous if he were to do that.
Yeah. So opting to utilize the Amphibious Assault onto the Ana. So really investing into this round and trying to get the engines going. with the state of the board, but playing it into the range road does also play it into the lacerate. With that said, Bushy has a lot of options to boost her back up, and he does, I think, needs to play at least one boost onto her if he's not worried about Parasite.
If he boosts up Diana, he plays into Imnos Wrath. If he doesn't boost up Diana, he plays into Parasite. So either way, Bushy plays into one of the two punishes that Unforgiven has. So opts not to actually boost up, which means Parasite happy enough to clean up the Ana for now.
Yeah, so he's got the option to pass here. That is a choice that he could make. And you need to be a bit scared of monsters, I think. You know, monsters really does love to bully you. Organics especially in round one. If they can bully you and win on even, they will. So you have to kind of find your point where you don't think you have the tempo. And with plays like Imlerith Wrath, like Lacerate, like Goliath, there's a lot of big boy plays in Unforgiven's hand. And Bushy is kind of running out of time here a little bit.
That's just dangerous because this plays very hard into a Lacerate, which then plays into because now, if Unforgiven goes for this Lacerate, it means that he could play a Neuromancy and maybe even consider taking a Glusty, because this Lacerate will put a bunch of ones on Bush's side of the board, which means that now this Glusty value is going to be insane. It's going to be able to eat 2 of Bushy's ones here, potentially.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. Like, if you continue playing into the round like this, you could kind of put yourself in a position, well, you have put yourself in the position where now if you pass on even. And that doesn't feel really good. But then if you look at the board state, like you said, that many ones, there's a massive Glusty Warp, and you kind of have to be wary of that too. I just feel like Bushy's kind of caught now. I feel like he maybe missed his pass.
He's going to go for the Range Rover Visigoth now, but I mean, I think he might have overstayed his welcome. Looks like Unforgiven has got access to at least one saving grace of Bushy, is he does have the Heat Wave, which can somewhat counteract some of that Glusty value. However, it still trades down because Glusty eats 2 ones on Bushy's side of the board. So, I mean, I guess Bushy, Unforgiven also eats a bunch of ones, so maybe the Heat Wave actually doesn't trade out. It trades up back. So
Delicious rats, delicious bugs, and delicious volunteers. Num num num. Glusty Wolf. Glusty Wolf. I feel like Glusty Wolf is a bit sad compared to where she used to be. She used to be absolutely monstrous, and now she's just like a mini monster. I guess, but Bushy not really worried about the Glusty. You know, when you see the board state like that and you have the Heat Wave, you kind of expect it. And if you're playing a Range Rover Visigoth, then that shows you intend to play at least one more card. But what do you spend here? Do you like... Oh, well, I guess he already played a card. I tell a lie.
Looks like
he played Heat Wave and then use the charges.
Bushy could play the Unsays now, and I guess on this board state, it's not too bad. If he plays the Unsays now, I mean, there's not really much to Unsays anyway in this matchup. You'd have to use a leader charge, but if he gets round control, you would imagine that'll be a very good thing. So I actually do expect Bushy to play the Unsays here and use another charge on the frigate.
Yeah, I like it. I think that, you know that the reach is there with Goliath, you know that the reach is there with Igern, and you know that the beast is going to be growing. So I think round 1 is like quite vital here. The problem is you don't have a follow-up, right? So after that surrender is kind of sad. It just is, it's not great. So you have to kind of make a decision on what you need for later rounds. But
I think he's going to actually take the pass here. So I mean, Unforgiven can quite happily take this with the Imnos Wrath or the Gwent. Looks like he's going to take with the Imnos Wrath instead and keep that Gwent perhaps to put some pressure on in round 2. So now let's see what happens in round 2, as Unforgiven was given round control.
Yeah, so Unforgiven can kind of decide what it is he wants to do in this situation. And this list is so annoying. Oh, there's Ethereal. That's even more annoying. This list is so annoying because it has good options for a long round and it has good options for a short round. With Ethereal, he can bleed if he wants to because he's getting, 3 points per turn or whatever. And he can kind of stack it up with some drones so that even after you've passed, it should continue to generate points. So Unforgiven can kind of play whatever strategy he wants to against Bushy. And Bushy just has to take it.
Yeah, I mean, Bushy does have a pretty good hand regardless. He's got the Neuromancy and the Amphibious Assault ready to go, so his hand isn't looking too bad. Missing out on the, I believe, a Bloody Brand and Fallible for now, but he can, of course, a Neuromancy out one of those two, and then a Neuromancy again in round 3. Actually, he can't do a Neuromancy round 3. These are both doomed, as he did play them round 1, so might have to rely a little on top decks here. The question is, how is Unforgiven going to go about this? He has got that Ethereal and 5 leader charges to support it, so that Ethereal could be quite threatening for sure.
The Ethereal, though, against the surrender list does lose out quite a bit because you are playing into that value. So it may be, you know, worthwhile playing it here and kind of seeing what happens, or kind of using it to bleed a little bit and then getting out before the surrender happens, right? So you can use it in this sort of way where you trigger maybe, you know, 2 or 3 transformations and then you just piece out of the round. Use it as a bleeding tool, and you kind of wait to see what it is your opponent does.
Yeah, I guess that might be the play, just to do a little bit of push here, shorten round 3 as much as possible, get that very short Osral finisher. Although without Yugen in the graveyard, the short round 3 Osral won't be quite as threatening for Unforgiven. And this Yugen in the short round is going to be quite bad. Obviously, the less cards in hand, the less armor Yugen has. And when Yugen does lose all of its armor, it does die. So the shorter the round, the easier it will be for Bushy to kill.
I mean, he could play the Goliath this round and develop a graveyard for the Osral. That is, an option. You also, you know, don't have to go down that route. You've got Iblarith, for example, with a 1-point Arrakis, which is a nice 14-point tempo play. Bushy here utilizing the Amphibious Assault to take the Temerian Drummer, and unfortunately for the drummer, he has nobody to listen to his jaunty tune.
Yeah, looking like a little bit of a sad drum for now, although I would imagine he will get met soon by maybe something like a Century Enchantress or even a Prince Anseus. But we'll have to see what ends up happening for Bushy. Next, as Unforgiven is in the driver's seat, he can kind of choose how he wants to set the pace of this game for now, as he did win round 1.
Yeah, and there's the Goliath, so just developing the graveyard here, playing another Ethereal onto the board and just getting a bit more tempo here. The point difference there, 22-7, so Unforgiven, I think, quite comfortable continuing with the bleed in the current state because he had such a big play. And Bushy, I don't think he's going to be able to catch up with this in one card, so just opting, not even to try. Play the Enchantress, set up the kind of the romantic situation, the drummer and the Enchantress, you know, marching off into the sunset. The Vitality's down and getting a little engine going.
And now we do see it does come down a natural selection. Not going to do too much other than play for 5 points. Looks like Unforgiven going to use some more leader charges just to keep this Ethereal going here in case he wants to pass. So the Ethereal at least gets 1 more proc. Now, Bushy, let's see what he decides to. He could just take the surrender right now and it would cut off a little bit of Ethereal value anyway. So this might just be the time for Bushy to play that surrender.
Yeah, when you saw the drone spawn there on the range melee row, which was lucky, admittedly, because they go randomly after the natural selection, and you see the additional charge, that's Unforgiven saying, I don't want to play this charge on the next turn. And then your question is, why doesn't he want to do that? Oh, because he wants to pass, right? That is a very clear tell there. So Bushy snapping the surrender here, I really like.
Yep, I definitely agree with that, as now Bushy still needs to do, I believe, 8 points once the pass does happen. If Unforgiven does take the pass. The question is, will Unforgiven take the pass? He's got the Neuromance, but there's not really much for him to tutor. I guess he could take it Imra if he wants to. He could just go all the way and just go leader, double leader charge, 1 for the Ethereal, 1 for the Caranthea, or not the Caranthea, but the Imrith, and put some real pressure onto Bushy.
Well, against 2 cards and a full leader? I don't know.
Yep.
That's I mean, we have seen Unforgiven go for a 2-0 in the past, but if he goes down that route like that is a big boy play, shall we say. That is someone smorking the way that no one has ever smorked before. And I would love to see it. I would love to see it. But I'm not sure that that's what we'll see.
Definitely constrained. Looks like he's not going to do it. So Bushy can pretty happily take this with the Unsays. Unsays will do exactly 8 points. So I would imagine Unsays will be the commitment to make for Bushy. Goes for the Neuromancy instead. Takes out the... This is a little bit of a risky play for Bushy. So the thing is about this play is it means that he gets to preserve his Unsays, but now he won't have a Neuromancy later on to find Bloody Baron or a Falibor or whatever else he might be looking for.
I mean, you don't care about the Baron because you don't have last say. It's not as impactful, and there's the Baron anyway. And thinning the deck like that does mean that your draws should be better overall, and you're kind of playing with the guaranteed Ansays. Like, you know Ansays is a good card, you know you're going to get at least 8 points of value from him, probably more because you've still got a full leader ability, right? Whereas the Neuromancy, like, yes, it gives you a Falibor or a Baron, but Falibor requires a certain kind of board state to really see its full value, and Baron without last say isn't as vital in this matchup as other cards.
And looking now at Unforgiven's hand, he does miss out on both Osral and the Imrith, so not the most amazing top decks there for Unforgiven. On the other hand, Bushy missed on the Falibor, but rest of his hand looking pretty good. Unforgiven, I'm not sure if he's going to have these points. I mean, Imrith is going to be a decent amount of points. It's going to be like a 13-point card, but is that going to be enough?
I don't think so. Those are some, like, very, very bottom tier draws. Like, this is the kind of art that, like, your kid does when they first pick up a pen and they draw on your wall. That is the level of Unforgiven's drawing, you know, like a circle with some lines coming out. And it's like, it's you, daddy. That's basically what Unforgiven did. Meanwhile, Bushy's out here, like, freaking painting the ceiling of some monastery with, like, some massive panorama. And yeah, that's sad draws from Unforgiven.
Yeah. Definitely not the greatest draws in the world. So looks like Bushy might be able to take this one, which means that if Bushy does in fact win this, he would be able to stay in this turn, because right now Bushy has to reverse sweep this monster deck if he wants to stay in the winner's bracket, because obviously both these players, none of them will be out. No matter who loses here, one of them will still be in the tournament. This is the winner's bracket final, so they're not out of it just yet, but they are fighting for that spot in the grand finals. And whoever wins this one will progress to the grand finals, where they will face the winner of the losers bracket final.
The winner of the losers. I mean, the Neuromancy, right, is what, 14? Because you would go for the Imlerith, right? You would get the Imlerith, you get a little one. Well, I guess 13. You're not really going to go Igkern because that's just asking for trouble, and you're not going to go Osro because it would only be 11. The consume onto the Night Wraith makes it a little bit better, but yeah, it's just the Barghast and the Indraga together. It's not a match made in heaven.
And there is the Barghast, not going to do too much. Still playing for, I guess, on that. It's still going to play for, I believe, 7 points there. Not amazing. And Bushy still has a Sunsace. I think he can just agree it out and play Ranger on Sunsace at this point. I think there's a punish for it. So we might just see Ranger on Sunsace coming from Bushy, as there really isn't a punish.
Yep, and he knows it. Like, he's got the decks. He can look at the decks. We can look at the decks. There's no punish. Ansays is never punished. And if he demands satisfaction in the range row, he shall get it. The only thing is that if you do that, you lose out on Shayla, right? Because you would lose out on her order ability. So you're better to probably play the Shayla and get the 2 points than... Well, I guess you'd get a bigger duel. I don't know. You have to do maths. Who does maths?
You get 2 points better on the duel, though. You get 1 point. 1 point from the boost on the Unsace, and another one from the drummer. So I think it's actually about the same thing, but looks like Bushy rather going to just play the Shiller now, and then I think last turn obviously going to be Unsafe. So it looks like Bushy will take game number 3, I believe, which means that Bushy finally gets this win with Northern Realms. And yeah, it looks like Unforgiven just not having the greatest top decks in the world, it seems.
You get style points, I suppose. If you play a Ranger Unsaves, you get 50 style points. And although they don't change the outcome of the game, they do look pretty cool. There's the Baron being utilized to reset the Endraga. I like that Unforgiven, maximizing his points by consuming the drones to spawn more drones. It is a nice little touch, but it's not enough, right? 10 to 30, well, 8 to 30 at this point, plus a bleed, plus a drama boost. Imlerith is not that good. Yep.
Looks like Bushy will take this one. So the series is now 2-1 in favor of Unforgiven. Let's see exactly.
He gets 50 style points from me for that, Unforgiven. Wash your hands, boys and girls. Oh man, I mean, it makes me smell. So the Igorn would have been good as well, right? Play the Igorn and watch it die. That also would have been a fitting end to game 3. But it does mean we have a set. We're going on to game 4. Bushy managing to defeat monsters once. He now has to defeat it again. He has Nilfgaard left, and I believe he has Syndicate left.
Do you know why Unforgiven didn't take the Jägern? Because if he did that, then he would have people in chat calling him Papega for misplaying, even though it was intentional. That's why Unforgiven didn't do it.
Oh, he thought that the Acorn would survive, even though it's not enough points to win. Damn, yeah, damn these pro players.
That's exactly why he didn't do it. All right, so looks like game number 5 about to go underway. Four, sorry. Game number 4 about to go underway. Right, hopefully game number 5. We'll see. Love to see some game number 5s, but let's see if game number 4 will turn into game number 5. It is going to be Syndicate here up against this monster. Syndicate going to be on red coin, and if we've seen this matchup before in the past, however, Unforgiven does run the Bomb Heaver, which means that this Passiflora might not be so safe. There it is, Bomb Heaver ready to go.
ready to heave. Can we just talk a second about these players and their choice of titles? I feel like a player's title says a little bit about how they feel about themselves. So Bushy with the toxic title, I guess that's how he sees himself. And then Unforgiven's like, nah man, I'm Casanova. Oh dear. What title do you use, Spiro? I guess chat chooses your title.
Yeah, chat always chooses toxic though. So I'm part of Team Toxic Gaming apparently. So got the toxic title. Looks like Bushy does end up drawing into Flying Redan on the last mulligan there. So that's going to end up being a little bit of a brick card, unfortunately, as he will not be able to thin it out of his deck. So a little bit of an unfortunate mulligan from Bushy in round number 1. Looking at Unforgiven's hand, that is a very strong hand, perhaps even too strong for blue coin.
Yeah, that hand is stacked. So we're clicking. I like this. You utilize the Djinn, right, to trigger the beast on the turn that you play it like this, because it's a 5. It's higher than the beast. He gets bigger, and then from here you can then play something like the Ighern with plenty of cards left in your hand, and ensure that the beast grows pretty quickly. And this is a way that this monster's deck can tempo ahead quite easily without utilizing things like Endrega Lava.
And looking at the board state right now from Unforgiven, he does lead off with a proactive beast, but Bushy does not have any poisons to punish this, so this beast will end up sticking for the time being. And at this point, with a hand like this, I think Bushy's just going to end up playing some bad cards and getting out of round 1.
Yeah, why would you opt to spend there? I guess if you have of course it is for the pickpocket, right? Oh no, he's gone all in. I was gonna say you want to play at least once, so then if you do play pickpocket, you go straight up to 9. But then Redanian's in hand, so that doesn't work. Going up to 5 plays around natural selection, so that play I do get. I do understand that one.
Does take away a little bit of carry from Bushy though, because now when the pickpocket does get committed, we'll go to 7 coins. Unless he wants to commit another street urchin, he loses out on potentially 1 coin of carryover. However, this Flying Redan in hand for Bushy, very sad thing to find, because it means he won't get access to that thinning in round number 1. So it's always going to be a brick card deck unless he can thin it out in round number 2.
Speaking of thinning, here goes some thinning. So setting up a toll unit there for the beast. Well, it wasn't the Ighern. Wispus, it turns out she's actually a very tall lady, so up to 10 points, and this does keep the engine that is the beast triggering, going forward. What's sad about Bushy's hand is there's no poison, right? This deck does run a lot of poison. You've got 6 poisons in the deck, and you have no poisons in the hand. And when you see things like the beast and Wispus and these tall units, that's sad. And I feel like Unforgiven has sniffed that out, right? You haven't seen a poison at this stage. You've seen a pickpocket and an urchin. Like,
man, look at the point gap though.
I love it. Flying Redanian from hand.
What? Can Unforgiven ever just pass here? Like, what if... How does Bush even do these points? If hypothetically Unforgiven were to pass, like, that's a lot of points you got to do, and he's still getting 2 points a turn from this beast.
He gets 2 more. Yeah, so he'd get up to 14 on the beast, so he'd be up at 43 versus 8. You've got 7 coins in pocket. You don't have any poisons. That's the thing. And if you play your engines like your seductresses, it's not very good because it's not very good because obviously they're not playing any more cards, right? So the engines don't actually do anything.
I think Unforgiven is thinking about that is a very big point gap. 31 points in favor of Unforgiven. Going to get 2 points turn still for another 2 more turns. I have no idea how Bush is going to do these points if Unforgiven passes. Will we see a pass from Unforgiven? If we do, how will Bushy make it up?
I suppose you'd have to roll the bank. You'd have to phone up the bank and be like, hey, can I have a loan? Oh, okay.
I really want to see a pass there because I am not sure how Bushy was doing it, but looks like Unforgiven will play the card, does not want to risk it. Is going to play the match selection, and Bushy is going to go into round number 2. He's going to get the Flying Redan out of hand at least, but he loses out on a little bit of thinning. And Unforgiven, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure what this to think about here. Definitely going to be a pass. I'm pretty sure.
He's made me thinking about, man, I really should have passed that last turn. I guess Bushy, he doesn't have to take out a mortgage, right? He doesn't have to phone the bank and be like, this is how much money I have. I know that the market's not very good right now, but I would really like to buy a house. And they're like, oh, well, you're a 20-something-year-old, so you're never going to buy a house, sorry. Yeah, so at the moment he does get to kind of hold on through this bad hand. But it does mean that Unforgiven has control of the round. But Unforgiven committed so much in that round 1. And what did Bushy play? He played Pickpocket and Urchin and Flying Redanian from hand. Like, he committed nothing.
I mean, that's pretty much how Syndicate goes, right? When it gets red coin, it can very easily do this type of play where you just play some bad bronzes, get some coin caravan going round number 2 with some coins. Speaking of coins, though, looking at Bush's hand, he's got 4 spenders in hand. That is not what you want to be seeing. Too many spenders. He's got a jackal, an urchin, an earwolf. Definitely too much coin spenders for this hand in round number 2 here.
No, I only see one sea jackal. You might have a visual thing though. Sometimes there's a visual issue. I'm seeing.
Right. Oh, okay, yeah, it was. That's weird. No, not transform into.
It's not quite that bad. I mean, Bushy's a big spender, but he's not quite that kind of spend heavy. I really like Tin Boy in this matchup because of the way that it handles things like ethereal and swarmy wands. Right, you can utilize that to shut down all of the wands before Glusty triggers.
That's a very weird bug. Yeah, so let's see what Unforgiven's going to be able to do here. He's got a pretty strong looking hand to push with. Bushy, on the other hand, he still has 3 spinners though, so it might not be 4, but 3 is still a lot. So let's see what he's going to be able to do to defend this bleed, which I would expect an aggressive bleed to come out from Unforgiven.
3 is a lot. So Unforgiven, just kind of setting up his board here. He's got the Night Wraith down. He's got a couple rats. He can afford to spend a couple cards here down to 7 and see what happens. So, you know, basically playing some non-committal bronzes at this stage and then deciding what it is he wants to do against Bushy. I'd imagine we'll see a Passiflora relatively soon in round 2. It gives you an option to kind of just see if your opponent has the Bomb Heaver and then decide what you want to do from there. But actually opting to play a Seductress from hand.
Let's see what I mean, yeah, the Seductress comes down now, but that can get very easily answered by a Strigger. And look at the point gap now, 10 points in favor of Unforgiven. Bushy is going to have a difficult time getting much to stick, especially when the Passiflora is going to get answered by the Bomb Heaver. But if he plays Passiflora, Unforgiven, I guess he might just have to play Passiflora at this point, honestly, because going into a long round 2 and then playing Passiflora towards the end of the long round 2 could end up being quite dangerous.
Yeah, you can kind of, you know, your other option is to hold the Passiflora and then be like, oh, I don't have the Passiflora. Ha ha ha, I do have it. You know, try and trick them into playing the Bomb Heaver. But I think for Unforgiven, there's never a situation where you really have to play the Bomb Heaver in terms of the way that you sequence the monsters list. You don't have that situation where you would play Bomb Heaver believing that your opponent doesn't have the Passiflora. And especially playing against Syndicate, which has the Vivaldi Bank, the Passiflora is more or less a guarantee. But actually, Bushy just opting to do the same thing again and play down another Seductress.
Yep, looks like Seductress is going to be on the board here, and let's see if Unforgiven is going to have another answer for that one. I mean, he does have one more natural selection in deck. He does also have Parasite and Imminent Wrath. Unfortunately for him, he does miss out on those removal tools, so there won't be any more damage cards for Unforgiven, so anything that Bushy does play will end up sticking for the time being.
Yeah, that is good news for Bushy in terms of the Seductresses. And the thing is, the Passiflora here also gives you a second Seductress on board, so it does mean that when those organic cards come down, you'll also see boosts onto your own engines, which is quite nice. So, you know, even if you do lose out on the Passiflora with something like a Bomb Heaver, you're still getting double Seductresses and you're still getting the whole bonded thing, so it's not the worst scenario to be in.
And there is a Goliath from Unforgiven, 15-point gap right now in favor of Monsters. And this is what Monsters likes to do, just play unconditional big point swings and bully the opponent into submission, while Bushy now going to have to figure out exactly how he's going to stay in this round. He still has yet to commit the Passiflora. If he doesn't commit it soon, he might find himself in an awkward position where he's going to be relying on a Passiflora finisher. Looks like he will play a Zar here. Declines the tribute, obviously, does not want to put any more ones on the board because of the threat of a Glusty, potentially.
Yeah, sure. He kind of plays himself in this matchup because of the Glusty Warp being able to eat the bug. You know, he's anything that's a 1. He's not fussy. He's not on a diet. If it's a 1, he'll eat it. But then you're maybe trying to tempt Unforgiven a little bit into committing the Glusty. One of the things that's really awkward here for Bushy is just that he still is missing 6 poisons. You don't even have 1 of them in hand, so you don't really have good answers to these tall units. And Unforgiven's list runs a lot of tall units, so it's not a situation where you're playing against monsters and they play Ozreal last so you don't get to poison it. There is a lot of good options to poison against monsters, and Bushy's just not finding any poisons whatsoever is quite sad.
Yeah, I mean, he's got, 6 poisons in the deck, which he has not found in all this game, so no way to like poison a Goliath or something like that, which would have been great value for him potentially, but especially considering, look at the Goliath positioning here from Unforgiven. He put in the range drone. What Goliath does is, when it does die or Death Wish, summon the highest unit from your opponent's deck to the opposite row. He put in the range row, which means the highest unit in Goliath's or in Bushy's deck is potentially an Imk. So if he had put it in the melee row, at least Imk might have gone to the melee row. So a little bit of a questionable positioning there from the Goliath, I think, from Unforgiven.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Quick thought. You have a defender on the board right now. So is there not a reason... Oh, well, no, you don't. I was going to say he played the Urchin there. He could have played the Passiflora and had one turn to trigger one stage of it. But he opted to play the Urchin instead. That's a bit of an odd choice there by Bushy. Like, you have the option there to play the Passiflora to... Then your opponent plays the Glusty Warp, right? And then you get one trigger of the Passiflora before the scenario. But Bushy actually opted to play the Urchin from hand instead. I'm a little bit... What's the thought process there?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, this Passiflora Greed is going to be quite dangerous for him. If he does not play this Passiflora, I think Unforgiven is going to... I mean, the board said Bushy's not generating really that many points passively. So right now, Unforgiven isn't really scared about continuing to play here. Like, there's nothing that's that threatening for him so far. And yeah, I'm not sure what Bushy exactly is going to do. He needs to get some kind of engine on the board because right now, Unforgiven is free to just keep on playing his cards. There's no threat for now.
It's a bit of a weird situation for Unforgiven, though, because you know that poisons are a thing. You know that there's that many poisons in hand, so you're kind of, like, a little bit nervous to play, say, something like an A-Rush here, and you've got the Glusty Warp and stuff, so you've got to be a little bit cautious about how you play this. You want to hold the Naglfar to counter a poison, but actually there's no poisons to be countered. Bushy now finally committing the Passiflora and saying, you know, I do need to start to get some engines online, which does set up Unforgiven quite nicely to spend the Bomb Heaver here, if he wishes, or just pass and mulligan the Bomb Heaver going into round 3.
And if he passes, Bushy can, of course, just play the Adriana. I think Bushy can do it, but the question is, does Unforgiven still want to keep going into this round? I mean, I think there might be some merit to it. So let's see what Unforgiven decides to do. The question is, yeah, there is a Jäger in the graveyard, so Unforgiven has set up. Looks like he will go for the Bomb Heaver here. And now Bushy is going to need to start getting some kind of points going. He is down by 19 points, so he needs to get the points going.
Unforgiven can't afford to play into this round for too long, though, because the longer he plays into this round, the more value you do see off of the Tin Boy. You know, this is kind of part of the reason why you do maybe want to bleed a little bit, is you want to try and reduce the value of Tin Boy, but you have to also then find your pass. And the longer Unforgiven continues to play here, because he wants to keep the Endrega Warrior by itself in case he wants to play the Adrenaline Rush, the more value the Tin Boy will see.
Yep, for sure. The longer this round goes, the better Tin Boy becomes. So let's see what Bushy decides to do, as he is down by quite a few points. I think it's going to have to probably be something like Adriana potentially to come down now. Question is he going to take the tribute or not? He's going to play the Adriana. Is he not going to spend first? Oh, Tin Boy, sorry. Looks like he's going to take Tin Boy here. I thought there was an Adriana. Looks like it's going to be Tin Boy. So now only down by 7 points. Much more manageable, of course. 7 points with 9 coins in the bank. Fairly digestible, I guess you could say. So let's see what Unforgiven is going to do at this board state. If he's going to keep going, or maybe he's satisfied with what he bled out and going to get ready for round number 3. Although round number 3 is still threatening, right? Bushy still has things like Imk and Sal. But then again, Unforgiven also has answers for it, like Imminent Wrath. And he also has a lot of engine value of his own with Ethereal.
The other thing Unforgiven needs to consider is every card he plays from here on gives Bushy 2 points. Right? That's the other thing that you want to be aware of. Like, the Adrenaline Rush will give him 1 point because of the drone, but everything he plays from here on out is providing points to Bushy. And yeah, Unforgiven, I think, respecting the double Seductresses and just piecing out of the round. I think with Bushy, maybe he thought that there was no Bomb Heaver because Glusty Warp was played on a delay.
Possibly. That could be a read. I mean, it's also interesting to note that this Ethereal won't be too valuable in this matchup, as Bushy does have access to Blood Money Leaderboards, which means he can combine that with Earwolf and deny the Ethereal all in one turn. So Ethereal kind of just going to play for, I guess you could say, 7 points in this game here.
Yeah, there's a lot of options for Bushy to shut down Ethereal. You've also, you know, got Philippa as an option where you could always charm one of them and take it over to the dark side, over to Syndicate, and stop it that way. So there's lots of different ways you can kind of go about dealing with the Ethereal. Bushy finally finding some poisons, but I feel like it's at a point where you maybe don't want too many poisons, and now he's in a situation where his deck has so many poisons left that you're mulliganing poisons, and you're just getting more poisons when really you're trying to find MK and Philippa.
Yeah, let's see what the mulligans show here. As I mean, there's the Imlerith's Wrath in hand for Unforgiven, so you can answer anything you want. As Imlerith with combined with Imlerith's Wrath means that Imlerith's Wrath basically doesn't even you need to have the highest unit anymore. You can just destroy anything. So it becomes basically a heatwave for 8 provisions if combined with Imlerith, which Unforgiven does have both on the board ready to go. Bushr, on the other hand, does have the Sal, does have the Adriana. He still has leader ability and he still has Bank. There comes down the Sal, which will get quite easily answered by an Imlerith's Wrath at some point, you would imagine.
I would, if I were Unforgiven, I would take the Wrath while you can, because there are ways that Bushy could play around it a little bit. If that soul gets too tall and Bushy either, you know, kills the Imlerith with, say, blood money, or finds Philippa and charms the Imlerith, then suddenly your Wrath value is limited by what you have on the board. And at the moment, the stuff that he has on the board, or in hand at least, the only tall unit you could really find for that is Osril. So this is a situation where I think you make hay while the sun shines, and you snap the Wrath and just kill the soul, you know, while it's nice and easy to do.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see what Unforgiven is planning on doing here, as he's going to play a leader charge here. I would expect it's either going to be Imlerith or it's going to be Ethereal. Looks like it's going to be Ethereal, but Bushy, of course, can easily answer this with his Earwald and leader charge. So let's see what Bushy decides to do. I think that's probably just going to be easy leader Earwald.
Oh, I'm having a dumb moment. I'm thinking Imlerith's Wrath does 7 damage, but you need to have a board, of course, to deal that damage. So not quite as easy as it seems. I think this does come down a little bit to how Imlerith's Wrath is utilized against Soul, because Soul is a big target and it's going to get a lot of value off of Wrath. But if Bushy can deal with the Imlerith here, then the Wrath is dependent on the height of Unforgiven's board.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the Imlerith being on the board means that Imlerith's Wrath can just destroy whatever, so should be pretty easy for Imlerith's Wrath to kill the Sal at some point. I imagine that's what's going to happen. Yeah, looks like Bushy is going to roll the bank. What does he end up finding?
I was going to say, unless Bushy kills the Imlerith or deals with the Imlerith, and maybe that's what he was trying to do here. Maybe he wanted to try and charm it with Philippa.
Perhaps that is what he was trying to do. Unfortunately for him, Philippa is going to be in the bottom 3 cards of the deck, so will not be able to do that. He could take a poison, I guess, but then again, Unforgiven has got a Purify ready to go for a poison, potentially.
I mean, if he takes the poison, he'll have enough coins that he can just straight kill the Imlerith with Ewald, so he does have options to play around it, but this is a very unfortunate bank. Yeah, so opting to take the top card and save the money.
If he kills the Imlerith with Earwald, then he has no coins, which means Sal will stay at 6, which means that Imlerith's Wrath can kill Sal anyway, so not really much you can do about it. And I would imagine this is probably just going to be a Naglfar's Taskmaster as... oh, actually, wait! No, it won't be a Naglfar's Taskmaster because Bushy, Unforgiven has
dominance.
Not dominance.
Yeah.
No, does not dominance. So it means Bushy have dominance, which means that Naglfar's Taskmaster won't be able to purify an allied unit. It can only purify an enemy unit, which means that because of that positioning of the poison being high up on the deck, he gets enough coins to get Sal to 8, which means that he's going to have to play Imlerith's Wrath, which means the poison will go through.
That was kind of a bit of a weird a weird situation in terms of the circumstances, right? So you have Imlerith, and you want to stop Imlerith so that you can stop Wrath, so that you can protect Soul. But because of the bank offering you poison, you had to poison Imlerith. But it meant that the Soul boosted because of the Horde, and then became out of range of... Yeah, there's just such a very odd sequence of events there that ultimately has actually benefited Bushy, because it means he doesn't have a dead poison.
Yeah, that means that the poison actually goes through, which is great news for Bushy. However, he needs to hope this Earwald survives, because, I mean, if it dies, it's his only spender pretty much gone. So, does Unforgiven ever go for it? I guess he doesn't, but there is going to be a 9-point A-Rush there, which is obviously a pretty nice card. It's a neutral card, but it is an organic, so when you do play it in organics, it ends up playing for 9 points. And now we do see Bushy will get to 9 coins, which means the Flying Dane will finally come out of the deck. And I mean, this could be a very close game. He still has 9 coins in the bank. Is this going to go distance?
I'm intrigued how Unforgiven reads this. Because if Unforgiven reads that Bushy has no spenders, then it makes sense to kill the Ewald. Because in killing the Ewald, you get 4 points of damage, plus you remove, 9 coins or whatever. But you know that Adriano is a card, you know that Philippa is a card, and you know that Sea Jackal is a card. So if you put him on any of those 3 cards in hand, he does have some form of spending, in which case you're better to probably go for the Osril. Or to just, well, I guess maybe play the Taskmaster and wait.
This is really close, but I think that Bushy might actually have this one. I don't feel like doing math right now, so I guess we're just gonna let the cards unfold and see what happens, but it's definitely gonna be quite close. Let's see what Unforgiven decides to do. I'm not sure what the Purifier is gonna offer him. It's gonna be a 5-point card, it seems. Unfortunately, he didn't have dominance to purify anything, so it looks like he's gonna play the I always forget the name of this card, this Taskmaster rather, and yeah, last card will be a Neuromancy onto a 14-point Osril with 2 leader charge, so 16 points still to be made for Unforgiven, whereas Bushy, this Adrian will play for 8 points and he's gonna get another 8 points off Earwald, so let us see.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where there's lots of little moving parts. Like, you've got the Seductress, so that should go up for 1, and then you've got the Osril, and then you've got the additional value from the Araka Swarm, and then you've got to do maths with coins and stuff, and oh, this is where playing Syndicate. This is why Syndicate has such a high skill ceiling, right? Because these are all the moving parts that you have to consider when deciding what to play.
I did the math. I think that Unforgiven still has this one, unfortunately, because what does he get? 8 points from Ewald, 8 points from Adriana. That's 16 points. Unforgiven also gets 16 points. So I think if I did my math correctly, I think Unforgiven should have this one, which means that Unforgiven is the first grand finalist of the tournament. And he will be waiting for the opponent of the losers bracket to meet him later on. So congratulations to Unforgiven, I believe. Well,
you don't do the math, Spiro. You gotta. This is the point in the cast where you just let it play out.
Okay. Well, I mean, he can always misclick. Maybe he misclicks. It's always possible. It's always possible. But let's see if he misclicks. Does he pass the clicking skill check?
Oh, 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. Indeed, there they go.
He does indeed pass the clicking skill check. So congratulations to Unforgiven. He is the first grand finalist. He will be waiting for the opponent, which he will meet at some point, hopefully soon. That was an exciting series so far.
It's not disaster for Bushy, right? He's just going down into the losers bracket, so he's gonna have to just chill for a bit and decide what he wants to do in terms of the list. He does still, have a chance to win this, but he is gonna have to win the losers bracket and then defeat Unforgiven twice more, which I think is gonna be quite a challenge. So there you have it. What did you think of the games? What was your favorite moment between them? How do you feel like the different factions performed? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy this sort of video, you can always leave a like on the video. Beyond that, you can find me on Twitter @Jaggerus and Twitch, twitch.tv/Jaggerus. You can find Spiro on Twitch, twitch.tv/Spiro_ZA. And you can find Team Leviathan Gaming at teamleviathangaming.com. To find out more about what they do. They do a lot of things like meta reports, big tournaments like this, and all sorts of Gwenty cool stuff. Beyond that, have an awesome day, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!